everyone for joining us today. It's a very exciting event lectured by Hussain Makke. We're going to start off the event with the Surah Al-Yasin recited by Brother Muhammad Hussain. So if you can just come up and صلوا على محمد.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ياسين والقرآن الحكيم إنك لمن المرسلين على صراط مستقيم تنزيل العزيز الرحيم لتنذر قوما ما أنذر آباؤهم فهم غافلون لقد حق القول على أكثرهم فهم لا يؤمنون إنا جعلنا في أعناقهم أغلالا فهي إلى الأذقان فهم مقمحون وجعلنا من بين أيديهم سدا ومن خلفهم سدا فأغشيناهم فهم لا يبصرون وسواء عليهم أأنذرتهم أم لم تنذرهم لا يؤمنون إنما تنذر من اتبع الذكر وخشي الرحمن بالغيب فبشره بمغفرة وأجر كريم إنا نحن نحيي الموتى ونكتب ما قدموا وآثارهم وكل شيء أحصيناه في إمام مبين واضرب لهم مثلا أصحاب القرية إذ جاءها المرسلون إذ أرسلنا إليهم اثنين فكذبوهما فعززنا بثالث فقالوا إنا إليكم مرسلون قالوا ما أنتم إلا بشر مثلنا وما أنزل الرحمن من شيء إن أنتم إلا تكذبون قالوا ربنا يعلم إنا إليكم لمرسلون وما علينا إلا البلاغ المبين قالوا إنا تطيرنا بكم لئن لم تنتهوا لنرجمنكم وليمسنكم منا عذاب أليم قالوا طائركم معكم أئن ذكرتم بل أنتم قوم مسرفون وجاء من أقصى المدينة رجل يسعى قال يا قوم اتبعوا المرسلين اتبعوا من لا يسألكم أجرا وهم مهتدون وما لي لا أعبد الذي فطرني وإليه ترجعون أأتخذ من دونه آلهة إن يردني الرحمن بضر لا تغني عني شفاعتهم شيئا ولا ينقذون إني إذا لفي ضلال مبين إني آمنت بربكم فاسمعون قيل ادخل الجنة قال يا ليت قومي يعلمون بما غفر لي ربي وجعلني من المكرمين. وما أنزلنا على قومه من بعده من جند من السماء وما كنا منزلين. إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم خامدون. يا حسرة على العباد ما يأتيهم من رسول إلا كانوا به يستهزئون. ألم يروا كم أهلكنا قبلهم من القرون أنهم إليهم لا يرجعون. وإن كل لما جميع لدينا محضرون. وآية لهم الأرض الميتة أحييناها وأخرجنا منها حبا فمنه يأكلون. وجعلنا فيها جنات من نخيل وأعناب وفجرنا فيها من العيون ليأكلوا من ثمره وما عملته أيديهم أفلا يشكرون. سبحان الذي خلق الأزواج كلها مما تنبت الأرض ومن أنفسهم ومما لا يعلمون. وآية لهم الليل نسلخ منه النهار فإذا هم مظلمون. والشمس تجري لمستقر لها ذلك تقدير العزيز العليم. والقمر قدرناه منازل حتى عاد كالعرجون القديم. لا الشمس ينبغي لها أن تدرك القمر ولا الليل سابق النهار وكل في فلك يسبحون. وآية لهم أنا حملنا ذريتهم في الفلك المشحون وخلقنا لهم من مثله ما يركبون. وإن نشأ نغرقهم فلا صريخ لهم ولا هم ينقذون إلا رحمة منا ومتاعا إلى حين. وإذا قيل لهم اتقوا ما بين أيديكم وما خلفكم لعلكم ترحمون. وما تأتيهم من آية من آيات ربهم إلا كانوا عنها معرضين. وإذا قيل لهم أنفقوا مما رزقكم الله قال الذين كفروا للذين آمنوا أنطعم من لو يشاء الله أطعمه إن أنتم إلا في ضلال مبين. صدق الله العظيم. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Ahsant. Thank you for the beautiful recitation by Brother Muhammad Hussain. And now we can all give a warm welcome to Sayyid Hussain Makke with a lot of salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Just like to remind everybody that inshallah after the speech there will be a short Q&A period. So if you have any questions, just hold on to them till the very end. Inshallah, the mic will be going around.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم اخرجنا من ظلمات الوهم وأكرمنا بنور الفهم. اللهم افتح علينا أبواب رحمتك وانشر علينا من خزائن علومك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. Brothers and sisters, respected elders, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me and for having me today. I see some familiar faces and many that I don't know yet, but I'll have a pleasure to get to know inshallah tonight. We're going to give about a half an hour speech and then we can make it interactive and you guys can ask me about what I spoke about if you want to, and we can talk about anything else that you'd like to, this topic or something else. But what I was asked to speak about was how to navigate through the Western world, if you will, with an Islamic identity. And of course, this isn't something that I'm going to be able to cover in a lecture. But what I chose to do was to speak about a certain aspect of that seems to be a root to many of our problems. And that is doubt. When a lot of us go through certain times in our lives, especially in our youth as teenagers. And I'm from London, England. And I was born in London, England. And I went to Hussain when I was 21 years old. So I lived a very similar lifestyle to a lot of the youth there, how you guys live. So I understand the issue of doubt, how sometimes one can begin to think, is it the way I've been taught my whole life? Is it the way my parents told me it is? What makes this way better than that way? First of all, the world that we live in, we have to acknowledge that, I would hate to say this word, but it has become a godless world. It's a world in which secularity has taken predominance over everything else. Yani one wants to be free of God as long as one says that I'm a good person, whatever that means, which we can discuss that as well, because it sounds great to be a good person, but then that needs a whole definition on its own. Because one person's good person may be another person's bad person. We can talk about that afterwards. But in this secular world that we're living in at the moment, God has been moved to the side. When it comes to Islam specifically, it's even worse for us in the West. Because within Islam, there is a whole, not even a conspiracy, but a whole movement that is attacking us and our belief systems, our creeds and our identities through every angle. When it comes to gender issues, when it comes to core belief systems, aqa'id, God's justice, and we begin to ask these questions. How could there be so much evil in the world, for example? How could God accept that war occurs? How could God accept earthquakes, that people ask sometimes? And several other things that, again, I don't want to mention too much, but we can talk about it afterwards. Whereas Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, within our creed, created this universe, this whole world, and He filled so many signs within this world in order for us to have something within our hearts. And He filled the world, filled it with all these signs so that our hearts may have something called yaqeen, so that it has this certainty, this belief. And the Quran keeps telling us about having yaqeen. One must develop this yaqeen. Yet we are faced with this sira', we are faced with wrestling the world that's attacking us almost as if we are alone. If someone wants to become religious or live life in a metaphysical sense where they see God and see signs from Allah and they want to speak to Allah, it's almost as if this person now is a delirious person. This person isn't a serious person. This person is backwards. No, science is now the front runner in everything. You're just going backwards in knowledge. Whereas Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants the heart to be settled. It's okay to question though. Islam allows one to question. And just because you question doesn't mean that you're doubting. And if someone comes and asks these questions that I'm talking about right now, Imam Sadiq alayhi salam says that the key to knowledge is the question. You have to question. Within our creed, as the Shia or Ahlul Bayt, questioning is our path. We never say this is just the way it is, and this is what you have to believe, khalas. Questioning is fine. And you can question as long as you want. The important thing to know is there is an answer for every question one may have. Now, if someone doesn't want to accept the answer, if someone wants to debate the answer, that we can do that, that's fine. But there are answers, they are there, and they are with the people who know. And all one would have to do is be humble. Yani when you come across a certain argument, a certain topic, a certain subject that's making you doubt, that's making you feel that you are not in touch with your creed anymore, that's bringing you away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then to be humble and say, let me be calm, and let me ask those who know. And if someone has asked once or twice or three times, and straight away they give up looking for the answer, you weren't asking the right people. And one has to also look to where they gain the knowledge from. You have to go to someone you have faith knows, who has studied, someone knowledgeable, not just to anyone. So, alhamdulillah, Islam says it's fine, you can question, there is absolutely no problem. You want to know why you wear the scarf? You can ask that. You should know why you wear the scarf. There's absolutely no problem. You want to know why you pray? You can ask that. There is no problem. You should know why you pray. Right? We're not a religion of blind faith. But it doesn't mean automatically that you're doubting. Straight away we go into panic mode, crisis mode, and I'm doubting. And then it becomes worse. And then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, where someone is telling themselves that they become a doubter, and slowly they move into doubt, because they've made themselves doubt. So I'm going to speak about three different types of doubts mainly. I'm going to break them up into three sections, and we'll talk about those, and then we can have an interactive discussion. The first type of doubt that the secular world installs into a youth's heart is the doubt of scientism, let's say, intellectual doubts. Okay? That they'll tell you a certain narrative of the world. The world is built upon rationalism now. So everything must be explained in a very rational way. And science is almost portrayed as if it is on the opposite spectrum to religion. Whereas within Islam, actually, and many historians agree upon, the first actual scientist, legitimately a scientist, was a Muslim. Ibn al-Haytham, the one who developed the telescope. And the center, actually, of science within the world, over 1,000 years ago, was Baghdad. That was the center of the intellectual sciences of the world, and they were Muslims. Yani the Muslims held the banner of science. There is no contradiction between them. All science is the explanation of how. That's all science can do. Science is observation. Science doesn't tell anything about why. Science observes. But scientists will also unanimously agree that science cannot give you 100% conviction in anything. They can give you 99.9%. And they'll call it theories. But there is always a chance that another theory will come along in time that will replace the theory that was there previously. And there's nothing concrete. And it's great, and it's developed our world at an amazing rate, and we benefit from this science. And we should be people who are advocating to engage within sciences. But the narrative that it's either science or religion is wrong. Even when it comes to the theory of evolution, that they try to put the theory of evolution against the narrative of the Quran. Nabi Adam alayhi salam couldn't have existed if the theory of evolution is true. And that also isn't true. They don't contradict each other. The theory of evolution may or may not be true. This isn't a science lecture. It may or may not be true. Doesn't affect Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala directly creating Adam. The possibility that He directly created Adam, the same way He directly created Nabi Isa alayhi salam without a father. The same way. He created Adam min teen. The same way He created Isa min teen. And perhaps other creatures were evolving at the same time. There's no problem with that. Yani these narratives, they're not contradictory against each other. So it's a false ideology when someone comes to you and tries to bring you scientific rationalism to replace religion. Bil'akis. You can have one of the most advanced scientists be of the most faithful people. There is no problem with that. There is no such thing as science is just science. Science always comes from somewhere. So when it comes to Ibn al-Haytham, the first scientist who was a Muslim, the reason why he developed the telescope, and the reason why he made his inventions and was so interested in astronomy is because he wanted to know more about the universe so he could know more about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That was his intention. He was engaged in science to know more about the signs of God. Increase his yaqeen, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has filled the universe with. Yet, now they'll tell us science is science. And they'll make everything into small, like all we are just a speck in the universe, mechanical robots. We live at one point, we die as if we were never here, and nothing ever happened. And this creates meaninglessness in someone's life, and this is relatively a new phenomenon. And for all of civilization, religion reigned supreme. Religion reigned supreme. All of civilization, people believed. Always. There was never a time in the history of mankind that people didn't believe in a higher power. Only within the last few centuries, since the Renaissance in France, the split of Christianity from the state, when science was seen as a banner contrary to religion, this is all new. It's only a few hundred years old, and now they want you to live this materialistic life. And so they will bring you down everything that you believe in to make it seem like it's all just substances going off in your head, chemicals, and a lot of it are lies. So much of it is lies. So much of it comes from bad intentions. You'll find even with Richard Dawkins, he has a book called The God Delusion, trying to disprove the existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, where he will quote Einstein. He will quote theories from Einstein and certain sections of Einstein's books, for example, denying the existence of God. Yet within the same book and the same letter, he refuses to bring the quotes where Einstein discusses the existence of God, that he believes in a God, just not a personal God. Well, why would Dawkins not include that? Because it goes against what he believes in. So he's only bringing, he's not impartial, he's bringing in what he wants to prove his point. A lot of it is lies. A lot of this comes from the intellectual doubts. The social doubts affect us a lot more, I think. The social doubts depends on our environment. When the environment that we are in wants us to suspend our beliefs. Yani when I'm with certain type of people, even if they were Muslims, let's say they weren't Muslims. If I'm in a group of people who aren't Muslims, often enough, then slowly the things they talk about, the things they do, it slowly begins to rub off on me. I remember when I had friends back in high school, and I was with one brother so much that I began to copy his laugh because of how much he laughed around me. I developed a laugh that was very close to his laugh. It's just natural. We are social human beings. We're social animals, and we gravitate towards one another. There's a study by Philip Zimbardo, a famous study in which he had actors portray prisoners, and other actors portray bodyguards. For long enough, weeks on end, and you can check this out, search it up on Google, when eventually they began to believe that they were actually prisoners and others were actually prison guards. That the human being is capable of brainwashing themselves into something. And everything you do is brainwash. Everything. I know brainwash is a negative connotation to it, but bear with me. Everything you do is brainwash. The books you read, you're brainwashing yourself with. The people you hang around with, you're brainwashing yourself with. The music you listen to, you're brainwashing yourself with. The movies you watch, you're brainwashing yourself with. Everything that you absorb into your brain, that's what you're brainwashing yourself with. So you should be very careful about what you choose to absorb. So if you're reading Quran, great, let me brainwash myself with that. I remember when I first went to Hussain, everyone told me, man, you're going to go to Hussain and they're going to brainwash you over there. And I went to my sheikh, I remember, and I said, Sheikh, you know, everyone tells me that they're going to brainwash me. And he said, بدنا نغسل لك دماغك بماء طاهر. Yes, with pure water. Do you want it? You want the water of Imam Sadiq? I said, yeah, تفضل. غسل لي دماغي. Because my mind has been so brainwashed by the bombardment of Western values that I have been so brought down in what I believe to be the meaning of life, completely astray from what my purpose of existence, confused. So everyone says, one brother was telling me recently, he was not religious at a certain point and he became religious. When he wasn't religious, when he was partying, when he was listening to music, when he was doing all these things, no one told him anything. As soon as he becomes religious, then everyone wants to give him advice. Right? No, Habibi, this is too much. No, Habibi, don't be so ma'ad. You know, they start calling you crazy. It happens. When you become religious, people, they want to resist it. Because people don't want to live in obedience to something else. They want to live obedience to themselves. So then around you, they'll tell you, no, don't do it. And we're bombarded with this from a young age. You guys know that show, TV show Friends, right? Everyone knows Friends. So when I was a kid, Friends was one of the biggest shows on TV. And I used to watch it with my brothers and sisters, and we'd sit down and watch Friends, and it was funny, and Ross and Joey and everyone. And it's funny, and we love the characters. When I grew up, I haven't seen an episode in so long. And recently, my wife, I was speaking to her, and she told me, she's never seen an episode of Friends. I said, let's put one on. Let's see. I watched this a lot when we were kids. I put it on, and I was so surprised that watching it 10 years later, there was so many innuendos throughout the episode, 20 minutes. So much in it that could corrupt a young mind that me as a child, I couldn't know about. I was just absorbing. No values. I'm just absorbing, and it's in such a nice way, and it's on TV at a very normal time. We all watch TV. Slowly, day after day, episode after episode, you begin to absorb these things. I'm not telling you don't watch TV, and I'm not telling you don't have friends that are not Muslims. I'm not telling you any of these things. Bil'akis, I'm telling you be in control and know what you're doing. Know where you're going. Know who are you hanging around with. If someone's in a group with a bunch of non-Muslims all the time, and the things that they speak about are against that person's beliefs, and that person has to always suspend their beliefs every time they're with these people, slowly they're going to begin to feel, it happens. In that moment, if it does happen, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to leave those people and cut them out, but it does mean that you have to create a social environment for yourself wherein it doesn't happen, so that you may have yaqeen in your heart, instead of doubt all the time that creates this chaos within. If someone wants to be settled and not experience this chaos within, and wants to have yaqeen and not doubt, they have to be careful about their social circle. It's important. We gravitate towards those who are like us, or they make us like them. And it matters. It matters to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You look, Ahlul Kahf, the people of the cave, ran away from their society, and they had a dog with them. Why is there a dog with them? This dog that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentions him within the ayah, that if He didn't mention him, it makes no difference to the story, but He mentions the dog. Because this is how much, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to save a people, and He saves the people of the cave, He saves their dog with them. Because they're pious people, they're even able to affect the dog. They bring the dog with them. This animal, if Allah is going to save a dog and bring him with the pious, then what would He do for us? If I'm going to be with a group of pious people, or people who are always talking about progress, people who are always trying to get better, people in everything. When I say Islam, I don't mean when you sit on the prayer mat and you say some words. It's life. And it's everything. And it's how you wake up. It's how you sit down. It's how you speak. It's how you train. It's what you eat, how you eat, how much you eat, how you sleep, which way you sleep, with which hand you put the food into your mouth with. It's a way of life. Everything. Everything we do, every movement, every choice. Islam is much wider than our unfortunate understanding of halal or haram. Because most of the time, if you ask a youth, what does Islam mean? You say, halal, haram, don't do this and do this. And that's not what it is. Islam was there mainly, objective. If I have to put the objective of Islam in a sentence, I'd say Islam is to get closer to Allah. Your reason for existing. To understand yourself so you can understand Allah. It's a whole process, a whole life, a whole journey of self-realization, of achieving one's potential, of reaching perfection. And it's a life of beauty and reflection and knowledge. And there's a whole system to this. A lot of the time we don't want to sacrifice for it because we have not yet understood it. And that's not always our fault. Maybe sometimes it wasn't explained to us. Maybe sometimes the social circle that our parents put us in was not beneficial for us. But now that we are older, and now that we can control the social circle that we are in, we don't want to put ourselves in places where the social circle affects us in that way. I remember when I was younger, and I would go to Paris. Paris is where my uncle lives. And my uncle, he was very close to me, and I love my uncle, a very successful person. Successful in business, and he was very kind to me. So he's someone I looked up to in a lot of things. Yet my uncle, when he went to France, I remember he started moving away from religion. Slowly I would see him, he wasn't praying. Slowly I would see these things, and then I would ask him, what's going on? And slowly he began to justify things to me. Like, no, Quran doesn't say, don't drink alcohol. It just says, فَاجْتَنِبُوهُ. It just says, move away from it. And then all these other arguments that you hear all the time. And he says, Quran, is it really the word of God? Is it not? And he began to make me shake. And so I was just a kid. I was a young teenager. And I was thinking, my uncle is saying that. My dad doesn't know what my uncle is saying to me. My uncle is coming from a good place. He thinks that he's reached some advanced level. And then he's worried for his nephew. He doesn't want his nephew to be backwards, like all these other people. So then he tries to help me. So he puts doubt in my heart. But then I go back to London and I'm feeling very worried. And I don't know who to talk to. And I don't know what to do. But you see, this is why when these things happen to you, and they will happen to you, you will meet people in the world that will install doubt into your heart. They'll make you think about something that you thought was normal, that you thought was self-evident and obvious, and then it turns out that it was never normal or self-evident or obvious. And then you begin to feel worried, and you go looking for the answer. And the answer's there. The answer's there. All you have to do is just calm down. You calm down, and you go towards those who know. You take care. Prevention is better than cure. So, we're not afraid of anyone or anything. We're not afraid of any other creed, any belief system. Adi. We go wherever it is, with being equipped with knowledge though. Not anyone can just go and read everything. But should someone be careful? Should someone take care of their social situation? Should someone be careful where they throw themselves? Of course. Of course you should. Especially if you're not there yet. Especially if you're still building yourself. One should be careful. Third main doubt, and I think this is 90% of doubts comes from here. 90% of doubts comes from spiritual doubts. There's a spiritual problem. The person isn't taking care of themselves spiritually. And this overlaps with the previous section of doubt, of social doubts. Because when a person isn't taking care of their heart spiritually, then they make the heart weaker. And the heart becomes susceptible to change. Al-qalb, yanqalib. Right? That's what we say, طَبِّتْ قَلْبِي عَلَى دِينِكَ. Make my heart firm upon your deen, upon your religion, because it changes. The heart jumps, it changes. If you don't take care of the heart, you don't try to purify the heart, you don't do Salawat Alhamdulillah. Is everything okay? Okay. If someone doesn't take care of their heart, I realize that I'm using myself as an example many times here to bring the message closer to you. I realize many times, maybe when I say a certain answer, there are times I have more conviction in my answer, my own answer, and other times when I have weaker conviction in my answer. I don't feel it as much as I felt it before. Why, Hussain? Why don't you feel it as much as you felt it before? What's the difference? And it dawns on you, I'm not taking care of my heart properly. Did I do my dhikr today? Did I pray on time today? Did I give my tawajjuh to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala properly? And real dhikr. If you just do that dhikr, if you just sit down and you really say Allah's names, if you do it every day, small things like that you might think are insignificant, which in fact are very significant to strengthen the heart. That there's a certain reality to these words. When I'm sitting really after prayer, and it's not BRB on WhatsApp, and then I do the prayer and I go back to my phone. But when I stop everything and I pray to God really, then I come and I say those words. Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah, La ilaha illallah, Allahu Akbar. If I'm really saying that, Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah, and I'm thinking, really I'm actually grateful. I'm thinking of all the things I'm actually grateful for. And I'm infusing that. I'm infusing the words I'm saying with the feeling I have inside in my heart. I'm saying Alhamdulillah. I'm saying the dhikr. It's a mantra. It's affecting me psychologically. It's affecting my heart. It's strengthening my belief. If I say that, and not in the AK-47 way of dhikr, subhanallah, not like that. When someone's really giving themselves time and saying what they need to say and being grateful, tadabbur and tafakkur, contemplation, meditation, upon the things that one is doing, really, then the heart is strengthened. But if one is not taking care of their heart, if one is not protecting it, no, look at the heart. And this is the physical heart. The physical heart is not the heart that I'm talking about. I keep doing this because there's a mirror between them. But I'm talking about the spiritual heart. But the physical heart, a lot of the time, is a symbol of the spiritual heart. Look where it is, behind the rib cage and the sternum and the most safe place within your body. Why? And it's the place that gives life. And Rasulullah says, he says that, he talks about that part of the human being's body. It is sound. The entire body is sound. And if it is corrupt, then the entire body is corrupt. He talks about this. If one doesn't take care of it, then it doesn't matter if their whole social environment is Islamic. It doesn't matter if you keep bringing this person to the mosque and reciting the Quran over their heads as they sleep. They don't want it. They're often in a state of idbar. They're moving, their heart is always moving away from truth because they don't actually want it. They're not trying to receive it. Because everyone who wants to be guided will be guided. Everyone will, in time. Some people quicker than others. But as long as someone is trying, that's why sincerity, akhlis tanal. If you are sincere, you will achieve it. Sincerity is the actual key to everything. Sincerity is the key to all religions and the key to Islam. Without sincerity, it's nothing. It's like a peel without the fruit. It's the body without the soul. Sincerity is what does it, ikhlas. When one is truly doing this with the pure intention, and this means someone has to do it every single day. And I remember this certain brother who I studied with, who I ate with, who he spent a year with me in the hawza, and we lived together, and we'd cry together, and we'd pray together. And then he began to read certain books that began to make him doubt. And slowly he began to see hypocrisy in people. And he began to blame Islam for the hypocrisy of certain Muslims. And then doubt began to grow in his heart. Then he left Hawza. Then doubt grew even more, and he eventually left Islam. He apostated. And doubt grew even more, that his main mission in life became to attack Islam. His main mission, he was in Hawza. And it can happen to anyone. No one is safe from their nafs. One always has to suspect their nafs. No one is safe. If you don't protect your heart, no one is safe. He saw me with his friends. And I was walking down the street, he saw me, he came, said salam, salam. And he was with his friends, and he was happy now because now there's a bunch of them, and they wanted to ask me all the questions to make me doubt and make me one of them and prove to me that Islam is the wrong and it's falsehood and it's evil. And I wasn't upset. I didn't cut him off. But I said to him one thing. I was worried for him. And I remember he had goodness in him. So I said one thing. I said, Habibi, if you want to do this, fine. Do what you're doing. But just be sincere about it. If you want to attack Islam, be sincere about attacking Islam. Because if he's sincere about attacking Islam, then that means he can't be just sleeping 10 hours a day and wake up and put a Facebook post against Islam. He has to be someone who is really diligently studying. Someone who is really diligently trying to think about the truth of whatever wrong he is claiming to be there. Because if he's sincere about it, it won't be there. What did he say to me? He said, I am sincere. Anyone who says they are sincere, when you say I am sincere, you can't say I am sincere. It's like saying, I know it's a phrase, but in my humble opinion. Well, that's not very humble of you. When you call your opinion humble. In that, you can't say I am sincere. Sincerity is something that changes every day in every action. Maybe you start something sincere, maybe you're no longer sincere. Maybe you start something insincerely and become sincere. Sincerity is something that someone every day has to contemplate over within their hearts. And it's a lifelong battle, and you can never say you reached it. And if you were to ask Sheikh Bahjat, for example, are you sincere? He would never say, I am sincere. It's La ilaha illa anta subhanak inni kuntu min al-dhalimin. That's what he would say. This is this path is a path of humility. You know, I once was reading into a Christian author, and he was saying about how with the Muslims, they won't tell you they're going to heaven. With a Christian, if you ask Christian, you're going to heaven? He says, yes, by the Lord Jesus Christ, I'm going to heaven. With a Muslim, he says, inshallah. He says, you know, I don't know, I hope so, I don't know. That's what we're supposed to do. No one knows. And it's a path of humility, as if that's evidence to us not going to heaven. Bil'akis. One always has to be in a state of reflection. Or of the alim, when a certain boy who apostated came to the alim, same situation as my friend, and came to speak to this alim and was telling him, you know, I don't believe in Islam. Islam's wrong. By the way, this guy, he had made a fortune gambling online, so I wonder why he doesn't believe in Islam anymore, but put that aside. See, it's a lot of it is spiritual diseases that this doubt comes from, but we try to justify it with intellectual proofs so we may get away with our hawa and lahu and la'ab within dunya. He comes, I don't believe in Islam because the Quran says the earth is flat. So I don't believe in Islam. So what does the alim say? The alim, he replied in an arrogant way. He said to him, yeah, the earth is flat. How do you know it's not flat? And he said, well, of course it's not flat. Everyone knows the earth is round, it's a globe. And he's like, no, who told you? How do you know? What's your proof, Mr. Scientist? Mr. I need to see it to believe it. Mr. I need proper observation. What's your proof? Well, he's like, did you take the pictures yourself? Well, the pictures. Did you take the pictures yourself? No. So what's your proof? Well, Google. When we'll come outside, we can see it. Are you the one who is coming outside to space to see the earth? No. So it's just testimony. So how do you know the earth is not flat? And he said, well, in the airplane. If you're in the airplane and it keeps going straight, it ends up back in the same place. He's like, have you been in an airplane? He said, no. So well, how do you know then? Someone in an airplane just told you that. So how do you know? Because you're saying science is the only way to know anything. How do you know? It's in the books. It's in all the books, the science books. Did you write them? No. How do you know? Well, the maths, the mathematics, geometry. Did you do the mathematics? No. Well, how do you know? Well, if you go to the mountains, it gets curvy at the end. So it does curve in. Well, maybe it's a semicircle. Maybe it's a flower shape. How do you know it's round? Who told you? Because if you want to claim that you only believe that which you see, or that is empirical, or that, because they say, I don't believe in Allah, because it's not empirical. Everything is material, everything is just, as long as you can touch it, that's the only thing that exists. So tell me, how do you know? It's all just testimony. All of this is testimony. How do you know? And he said, I know the answer. And he gets excited. What's the answer? He says, the shadows, the night and day. And then the alim said, indeed, in the alternation of the night and day are signs for those who reflect Quran. And the man's jaw just dropped. The whole time he was trying to prove the non-existence of God through an error within the Quran that the earth is flat, and then he proved to him that the earth was round based on his evidence through the Quran. And he played with him the entire time. They come with intellectual gymnastics. They come with all these different reasons as to why you're wrong. And they're not coming from a good place. They're not coming trying to give you hidayah, they're trying to help you. They're coming, they're in nar, they're in Jahannam, and they're trying to pull you down with them. Come here. I'm not staying in nar on my own. I want to bring all of you with me. There's a lot of space for us. Come. And the person who refuses, there are only a few, because it's so hard to refuse. Because shaitan, he does zina of this place. He makes it seem like this is the place where life is supposed to be lived. This is your place. This is your meaning. Come. What do you need to live that hard life for? Come. When that isn't the case. So one has to build conviction within their hearts. one has to, if you look at Imam Ali alayhi salam, how he was in the Battle of Uhud, it's just absolute conviction. I was going to say these two stories that they actually make me laugh. They make me laugh when I think about the way in which Ali ibn Abi Talib thinks, how he thinks. He thinks in absolute conviction. These two stories. And they might sound a bit weird to you, but you would see how convinced this person is. Yani the first one, let's say, when Rasulullah wanted to go into Mecca, he had put Medina on shutdown because he didn't want anyone to know what he was planning. And he knows there are spies within Medina. So he doesn't want Quraysh in Mecca to know what's going to happen. A man within Medina sees everything, sees Medina's on shutdown, he's scared for his family. He's a Muslim man. He came on Hijrah with Rasulullah years prior, but his family is still in Mecca. So he writes a letter to his family saying, I don't know what's going to happen, but it seems like Rasulullah is planning something, so just be ready for anything. He's worried about his family. He gives this letter to a woman who was able to find the back roads of Medina and escape. He pays this woman handsomely so the woman can go take the letter towards Mecca and give the letter to the man's family. So the man writes the letter, gives it to the woman leaves Medina. Of course, Rasulullah Sahab al-Wahi, he finds out about this. He knows someone escaped Medina with a letter and they're going to warn Quraysh. So the Prophet calls Zubayr and Ali alayhi salam. And he tells them, go and bring the letter back. This woman has a letter. She's going to warn Quraysh. Go and bring the letter back. So Zubayr and Imam Ali alayhi salam, they leave Medina. They get on their horses and they track this woman until they come across the woman. Zubayr says, I'll handle it. He gets off the horse. He tells Ali, I'll handle it. He goes towards the woman. He says, woman, give me the letter. And she says, what letter? And he says, the letter. You know which letter. Going to warn Quraysh, give me the letter now. And she says, which letter are you talking about? What letter? She's acting as if there's no letter. And she starts panicking. And Zubayr begins to think, maybe I've made a mistake here. Maybe this woman doesn't have a letter. He's like, you know, the letter. And she begins to cry. Which letter? I don't know which letter you're talking about. And she begins to act out and create a scenario. And then Zubayr says, oh, no, she definitely doesn't have a letter. And he goes back to Imam Ali. And he says, yeah, Ali, this woman, she doesn't have a letter. And Imam Ali says, what do you mean she doesn't have a letter? And he said, well, I just asked her and she's crying. And he said, Rasulullah said there's a letter. That means there's a letter. The report is Imam Ali gets off the horse. His eyes are bloodshot red. Look how angry he gets just because someone was claiming Rasulullah spoke falsehood. And this is a man who can be so soft at times. Yani when the Prophet told him to go check on these people who were reported to be doing things outside of marriage, he closed his eyes and he came back to the Prophet and the Prophet said, what did you see? And the Imam said, I saw nothing. So he covers for the believers. But when someone claims that Rasulullah is lying, or when someone is claiming that what he is convinced in is falsehood, the Imam gets angry. He goes to the woman and he says, give me the letter. And she says the same thing. Which letter? I don't know which letter. And she starts crying, creates a scenario. And Imam Ali just takes off the car. And he says, give me the letter. And she gives him the letter. Takes the letter, salam alaikum, goes back. He knows, khalas, Rasulullah said there's a letter. That means there's a letter. Conviction, 100%. No doubt. When he was in Uhud, and everyone was running away. Imagine the scenario. Everyone is running away in Uhud. The Muslims are losing the fight. Hamza, the uncle of the Prophet, has just been killed. And he was one of the main people in the army. People are seeing Hamza on the floor. People are shouting, Qutila Rasulullah. They're saying Rasulullah is dead. Everyone's running around. They say Uthman ran to the Red Sea 3 days. He was running and kept running. Everyone kept running. Everyone's running. Imam Ali sees all of this. And you know what he says? This is what makes you laugh. In the report, he says, I didn't see Rasulullah of the people who were dead. There's no way Rasulullah could die. because we are promised victory. Rasulullah can't die. He doesn't die here. And I know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has promised us the victory. The only way that He can explain it, He says, so the only explanation is that Rasulullah has been taken into the heavens just like Isa ibn Maryam. That's the only explanation. Yani He explained it through a miracle. He's like, I can't find Rasulullah, and I know he's not killed, and I know he would never run away. So the only explanation is رُفِعَ إِلَى السَّمَاء. That's it. So he keeps fighting until he sees Rasulullah. And Rasulullah asked him, what did everyone do? And the Imam says, kafaru. They all left. They all doubted you. Everyone doubted you. And he said, what about you, Ya Ali? And the Imam says, Al-Kufr ba'd al-Islam, Ya Rasulullah. After I have already submitted, you want me to doubt you? Never. Never. And they stand, two men. There's a narration that every single person ran away in that battle. And there's a narration that Tabata Ali wahda, by himself. He stayed by himself until he's with Rasulullah, and they stayed. Conviction, yani. You have to be someone who, just as the Imam says, if the entire world was filled with his enemies, ما بليت ولا توحشت. He doesn't care, he doesn't feel scared, he doesn't feel lonely, even if he's by himself, because he is with infinity. Because Allah is infinite. It doesn't matter if there's 1 million, 2 million, 3 million around you, and everyone telling you, no, 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 this is not the way. But with him, with complete 100% conviction, he says, it doesn't matter if the entire world is full of this, I would neither care nor feel scared. So one has to build yaqeen within their hearts. When navigating in the societies that we live in, it's a necessity. We have to take care of our hearts. Dhikr, prayer, give time to God. We have to follow the examples of our leaders. Take care of our social circles and not be duped or tricked into believing what modernity or the secular society wants you to believe. So I believe we have some time to take some questions, and we can talk about this topic. If you want to ask something about the lecture that I've mentioned within the lecture, or something outside of it, near to it, please.
Thank you, brother. So the mic will be going around if anyone has any questions. Could be about the lecture, could be about something a bit more general, anything.
Assalamu alaikum. You said that we should give time to God, and that's part of having yaqeen. Now, these are the nights of Ramadan, and the best time to gain spirituality. What would you suggest that we can do to build up that spirituality in our salah, in our amal?
I would say that people are of different temperaments and personalities. So I wouldn't recommend one thing for everyone to do. So it would be really based on who the person is and what they like. Yani even on Laylatul Qadr, masalan, usually what we do is we all pray and du'as for the whole night, and that's usually the recommended thing. But let's say someone didn't have the temperament to engage in du'a for that long. There is great ibadah and great ajr and great reward and service in seeking knowledge, for example. If the person is a very intellectual person, let's say, there's not a person that can just sit down for hours and it doesn't affect him as much, and that person begins with knowledge, but does that for good. There are people of different temperaments. People who like poetry more than intellectual knowledge, people like intellectual more than prayer, people like prayer more. I would say someone would begin with that which suits their temperament more. And some people, for example, like to listen to a majlis of Abdullah alayhi salam. And another would listen to Maslan Dua Arafah. Dua Arafah is different to Dua Abu Hamza al-Thamali. One is very engaging with death, and the other is very engaging with love. So it depends a lot on who the person is. The person will have to ask themselves. And I know like in Lebanese culture, for example, they're a very Jalali culture. So They are very affected in Lebanon when you recite Dua of Hamza al-Mali. Everyone begins to cry. Mali la abki, speaking about the grave and the angel of death, and everyone cries and they're scared. But if you say something like Subuhun Quddusun Rabbil Malaikati wa Ruh, they don't really respond to that. Whereas, for example, in Iranian culture, which is a much more poetic culture, they respond more to prayers like Subuhun Quddusun or Dua Arafah, this kind of thing. And this is cultures. But individuals, this is also true. So it would really depend on the individual. Imam Ali alayhi salam says that no one can make any movement without first having knowledge of that movement beforehand. So one has to have some ma'rifah. So I think that's a prerequisite to everything. Even if someone was to listen to half a lecture a day, reading books, creating this ista'dad, this container to receive from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because that's what's in our hands, building the container. And Allah gives. But Allah's da'imul fadli al-bariyah, He's always giving. And He is ghani. So He has everything and He's always giving. So then why am I not receiving? Well, I'm not receiving because I'm not opening my hands up enough. And you can't go to the ocean and take a cup with you and only take the amount that the cup allows you to take, and then you blame the ocean. The ocean's infinite. The ocean gives as much as you want to receive. But if you're not creating the ista'dad, it doesn't matter. So one would have to read. There's no path without knowledge. And Ramadan is a great time to start that within one's life. And you're a writer, you're a reader, so you know how much that can affect someone's life, and how much the lack of it will affect someone's life. Reading. And if one isn't a reader, then at least be a listener. At least listen to lectures or podcasts or things that can increase your knowledge. The more you live in this state where you're bouncing off ideas in your head and you're nourishing your mind, the more you're within this state, then the more you'll be aware of yourself, so you don't fall into ghafla and you're in yaqza. You're not sleeping, you're awake. In Shahr Ramadan, of course, the dhikr of Shahr Ramadan is Quran. So one would recite Quran. One would have to be careful, and it's a balance of everything. One would have to be careful of what they eat, how they eat. Yani aftar time, for example. And notice, reading for the mind, right? Quran for the soul, contemplating for the soul, eating for the body. Yani what do you eat at iftar time? How much do you eat at iftar time? Is it all meat? Is it meat every single day? Because that will affect you. And that does harden the heart. And how much are you eating? Because when someone has a full belly, that's the furthest away you could be from God. And you only have about 6 hours here of nighttime. So imagine, the 6 hours you have of nighttime to do ibadah or read or anything, you're furthest away from God. Whereas if someone was to have a very sensible type of iftar, for example, a sensible suhoor, maybe have a walk in between, it does affect your spirit. It does affect your mind. When your spirit is rested, your soul is rested, your mind is rested, your body is rested, they all affect each other. It's all one. And if you're not sleeping much, that will affect your spirituality. If you sleep too much, it will affect your spirituality. So one has to take care of their body. One has to take care of their mind, nourish it. And one has to give themselves their spiritual food of dhikr, contemplation of the Quran. If we're missing one of them, if we're just taking care of mind and body, or mind and soul, not body, then we're still going to suffer, because it's all one nafs. So someone would have to look at the whole thing and look at what suits them. And not to go towards that because Salatul Layl Maslan works for your mother and she's been praying it for 20 years. Doesn't mean you can automatically just begin to pray it straight away, and if you don't, then you give up everything else. And shway shway. Because also we get spiritually ignited, and then we want to go at everything at 180 miles per hour, and we break ourselves in the process, and in long term this isn't good. Actually, this can be harmful. It's better to do a small bit every day, consistently, than to do a whole night and bring that all heavy on down to your heart and then not do it again. That actually might be harmful for you. So to every spiritual practice is like this. Even with body exercises like this. One has to have just a bit every single day, and then consistently that makes someone grow. Yeah. So it's an individual thing, but this is ijmalan what I would say.
Assalamu alaikum.
Salam.
Thank you for the good lecture.
My pleasure.
My question, what would it take to empower the youth within a community setting?
What will it take
Yeah,
to empower the youth?
within a community setting.
يعني the youth as in just younger people?
Second generation, those who have not immigrated here.
What should they do or what should the elders do?
Both.
Like, I think first of all, there has to, the elders, inshallah, the elders have the wisdom, the elders have the experience, and the elders have the guidance. So for the youth to do this, this is something that I get asked almost every other day from communities all over the world. No, we're trying to have English programs at the very least. This is at zero, because English programs is not even enough. But at zero at the very least. When I was a child, nothing was in English, nothing. Halla, there are a few English speakers that are coming out, and there are more books in English. There's more available, but there's not enough support from the elders. The elders usually are the ones who donate to the masjid, and the elders are the ones who sustain, and so they get the say on what happens in the masjid. So the first thing that needs to happen, the first step, I believe, in my humble opinion, has to come from the elders. And so the elders would have to choose. If they are in every community, I would try to find 5 or 6 boys or girls. They're the ones who have the most passion, and they have intellects, and they have some wisdom, and they just need some guidance. I would work on them to take over a youth committee, for example. Some communities already have that, others don't. Everyone does it in their own way, but this is just a general template. They would take over the malaf youth, for example. The elders, mainly, most of what the elders have to do, aside from guiding them through the experience, is, with all due respect to the elders, is they have to slowly just begin to get out of the way. Because a lot of the time, they make more problems for the youth than they do good. Ma'anno, they want a lot of good for the youth, and they want to help the youth. But when they want to do it their way, and the ways that they know it from back home, and it's not the way that it's to be applied here, this is a whole new generation. Me and the youth, I speak on behalf of all of us, when I say that when we go back home to our home countries, the countries of our parents, they call us English, or Britannia, Canada, America. When we come here, they call us Arabs. So we don't feel at home anywhere. We don't have a specific home, so we have to create one. And if the youth are trying to create this in their communities, Shabab, Afwan, Habibati, bear with me please. If the youth are trying to create this, then the elders should be helping the youth in doing it through their experience and their wisdom, mainly doing that through focusing on the roots, as in those 5 or 6 brothers and sisters as the template, and make sure that they don't get in the way of it. Yani, al-kirsi, this person wants to have the final say, this person wants to have the final say, this chairman, and these unfortunate divisions within communities. At the end of the day, the youth don't know about all this. They just come in, they're trying to get close to Allah, and they see that these people don't speak with these people, and this political party versus this. We have to leave all of that now, and focus on what's happening right here, between ourselves. So, hopefully, we're trying to create that. English programs, like this program, I'm so thankful that the sister actually organized this. She put a lot of effort in, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala really bless her for that. And I'm so grateful that I was able to help her out on this. But inshallah, this could be the beginning of a whole new project. Every Muharram at least, or every Shahr Ramadan at least, once a year at least, begin with the program. And Muharram would be great, because within Montreal, there aren't really English or French programs. So to have French or English programs in Muharram would be a great step forward. If this could be funded by the elders, if this could be directed with their experience and their wisdom, so, and not getting in the way of it. Because otherwise, the story of Abdullah alayhi salam, the whole message of Abdullah alayhi salam, everything that we are all working towards the youngers aren't going to understand it. للأسف. Unless they get to the age of 20 to 25 and they decide, I want to learn Arabic properly and then listen to Arabic and read Arabic, then they're not going to. And we have to create that. So it's on many brothers and sisters to go and seek knowledge, of course, but we also have to provide the ardiyah, provide the grounds for them to receive that. Having programs, not just lectures, but having those influential, charismatic individuals begin book clubs, for example, courses, mentorships, having a counselor in the masjid or in the school, or someone who is respected in the community, someone who attracts. And also this person can't just be any person or people, influential people, to attract the youth. The youth gravitate towards that which they like to be like. And when you have young boys always look towards a very convinced man, a man who speaks with a deep voice, conviction, with his shoulders behind, and he has a presence within the room. This is all realities. These are all realities. These affect. People gravitate towards such a personality. And this is just human nature. Likewise with the sisters, an influential figure. When someone is like that, they gravitate towards them. When they see, this person, their life is not in order, what can they offer me? They won't. So there's several things that needs to be done. But mainly, I would say that this relationship between the elders and the youth needs to be, the bridge needs to be built, and the hand of communication needs to be extended. Inshallah, this program for this masjid could be the beginning of that project, I hope. Thank you.
Why did God create us?
Wow. MashaAllah. SubhanAllah, it's always the youngers that ask the hardest questions. Like one asked me in Lebanon, he was asking, what does Kanzul Makhfi mean? So how are you going to explain that hadith? Why did Allah create us? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there are many answers for this, but I'm going to try to explain it in a way in which you're going to understand it. This is a question that I think you're going to be asking for as long as you live. But you have to just be patient with me as I try my best. The human being loves infinity. You know what infinity means? Infinity means this which never finishes. We're born, we love infinity. We go to school because we want more knowledge. We learn every day, but it's never enough. We never say, this is enough knowledge, my head can't take anymore. We want more knowledge. We finish school, then we go to university or college. We want more. We finish college, then what do we want? Do we say, khalas, I'm done? No. We say, I want to go to work, I want to find a job. Okay. Why? To make more money. I get a job, I make money. 1 year, I make 100,000. Next year, if they tell me, do you want 200,000? What would you say? You say, no, 100,000 enough for me. You say, yes, I'll have more. The next year, they'll give you 1 million. You say, you want 2 million? You say, yes, I have 2 million. Because 2 million better than 1 million. You always want more. Even if you had 1 million, trillion, billion, they told you want more, you say, I want more. Maybe not more money, but you say, I want to retire and I want to go to the village and I want to fish. That's still more. It's more rest. You always want something more. You never get to a stage where I'm fine. Then you want to have a wife. Then you want to have kids. Then you want to have grandkids. Then you want to have 3 wives. Then you want more. You always want more. Why does the human being always want more? Because they love infinity. Since you're born, you want this. You love this. Where is it? Where is infinity? You know, sometimes you have this hole inside and you think to yourself, this infinite hole inside me, this meaningless hole, I'm trying to fill it with all these things. I fill it with money. I fill it with family, with my parents, good things. I fill it, but guess what? Everyone eventually passes away. And then we are left alone in the world. So then what is it? What are we trying to fill? There's only one thing that's infinite. And it has to be there. It has to be there. Because if you're hungry, right now you're hungry, right? You're hungry, you're going to eat by the shway. You're hungry. If I told you you're hungry, but food doesn't exist. How does that make sense? I'm hungry for food. I feel hungry for food. So I know there's food there. Otherwise it doesn't exist. What am I hungry for? If I said you're thirsty, but there's no such thing as water, you say, no, of course not. But I'm thirsty. I need water. Of course it's there because I feel the thirst for it. So water has to be there. It doesn't make sense for me to be thirsty for something that isn't there. Tayyib, your whole life, you're moving towards infinity. Your whole life. You're moving towards more. So where is it? See, in Islam, we call it God. We call it Allah. Allah is infinity. The only infinity is Allah. And the only way you fill this infinite hole inside is when you reach Allah. Allah created you to find this out, to realize this meaning. This is called perfection. When you realize perfection, when you realize this is complete happiness, this is the purpose of why you're created. This is what it means when we say, because usually when you ask someone, why did God create us? They'll say, because you must know Allah. That's why He created us, to know Him. How do I know Him? I must know myself, then I know Him. How do you know yourself? I must know myself by living this life based on what Allah told me is good and what is bad. And being good to people and giving charity, etc., etc. That's how I know myself, then I know Allah. So what is Allah? Allah is more. It's what your whole life you're going towards. You're always treading towards Allah. No matter what you do, no matter where you go, you're going to meet Him. And if you want to be good, you'll meet Him good. And if you want to be bad, you meet Him bad. But you're going to meet Him. So this whole journey is a journey where we're preparing ourselves to meet Allah. We're trying to know Him before we meet Him. God creates. That's what God does. God creates. He's telling you your story. And it's a crazy story. It has Adam and Shaitan and all these things happening. It's like Star Wars. It's all these characters. And you're part of the story. And right now you're telling your side of the story. So that when you get to the end, you have a version of chapters by which to read to Allah. I'm sorry. That was my best. Is that okay?
Okay, unless there's any last quick questions. Anybody? We're nearing the end of our Q&A, so just a very, very warm thank you to Sayyid Makke. You can just thank you with a loud salawat. And we will be ending the program with a dua by Brother Muhammad Al-Bahili. You can just come up and you can welcome him with a salawat as well, please.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم عجل لوليك الفرج واجعلنا من أنصاره وأعوانه والمستشهدين بين يديك اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا وهب لنا رأفته ورحمته ودعاءه وخيره برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين وإلى أرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات ومن مات على الإيمان نهدي للجميع ثواب السورة المباركة الفاتحة مع الصلوات